Okay, let's get into this. Um, let's get into this. We're just gonna talk. Miss Marvel. What we're gonna do here is just a little episode by episode breakdown, right? From 1 to 6, the first season has concluded, and we will see the continuation in the Marvels. If you haven't seen episode 6, go check it out, and you'll know exactly what it is that I mean. There is a post-credit scene at the end of this show. Um, so let's get into this. If you haven't seen this already, you know it is a okay series, right? For the most part, I will give my rating at the very end, but first let's do a little episode by episode, play by play, right? Really quickly, not you know just dragging this out, right? So Kamala Khan, she's the main character. She's a 16-year-old high school girl. She is a fangirl, from what you would call it, of the Avengers. In particular, she's a fangirl of one Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, right? She has a best friend by the name of Bruno Corelli, and their objective in episode 1 is to attend Avenger Con. Now, Kamala, while she receives a package, in that package from her grandmother Sana, it includes something referred to as a bangle. That is kind of a wristband, right? This bangle, the objective of it is you wear it on your hand, but she doesn't know what it does. But she receives this from her grandmother Sana. She tries it on. She tries it on in later parts of the episode, when she goes to this event called Avenger Con. Avenger Con, I'm not too sure if they actually have that here. I'm pretty sure they do, though, right? I wouldn't be surprised if at some point they do, but it's very much like Comic Con. So Avenger Con, she asks her mother for permission if she can go to Avenger Con. Her mom, of course, says no, leading to Kamala to take matters into her own hands. She sneaks out with her friend Bruno. They meet up, they go to Avenger Con. She participates in the Captain Marvel face-off, and before they have a chance to announce the winner, while she puts the bangle on, by the way, Bruno made her a pretty cool Captain Marvel glove that she forgot in the bathroom. She puts the bangle on, and in the midst of her putting the bangle on, it activates and gives her supernatural powers, supernatural abilities. This is during her cosplay, where she now realizes she can do stuff by extending her hands. Light emits from her hands and it almost crystallizes to one extent or another. So she uses her powers for good. In the way that I know that she uses her powers for good right away is one of her friends or her classmates, colleagues, whatever you want to call it, Zoe Zimmer, falls into danger, and Kamala rescues her by extending her hand and prevents her from falling nearly to her death. Right now, in a mid-credit scene, this is where we're first introduced to a team called the Damage Control Department. Okay, continuing on in episode 2, this is where we get a full-on montage of Kamala and Bruno beginning their training. Why? Because everyone knows that superheroes aren't just born into superhero roles. You have to train. So this is what they go about doing, practicing her powers, very much like Spider-Man had to at one point. She's practicing how she emits powers, what makes her emit powers, can she actually stand on the light crystals that she is able to emit. So her friend, Zoe Zimmer, is throwing a almost celebration party, and she runs into an individual by the name of Cameron. Is it Cameron? Not 100% too sure, but it's Cam something. I don't know, one of those two. But he plays a bigger role later on in episode 3, 4, 5, and 6. So her friend Bruno, he becomes a little frustrated with her when she, of course, is impressed by Cameron. She likes him, right? But he wants her to train. He wants her to focus more on how to use your powers. You could see them training on a roof right now, right? Where she has this crazy looking Captain Marvel outfit. Continuing on, Kamala now becomes a little curious about this bangle, right? What's the story behind this? Obviously, you want to know, why is it that when I put this thing on, it locks onto my arm? I'd be worried more a little bit a little bit more about can she take this off? What's her abilities in taking this off, and why is that is glowing a certain purple? If you notice that when she traveled into the other dimension, there were some people that she was seeing. They were colored purple, with glowing eyes. This almost made me think of Loki. In all honesty, anytime I see the color purple nowadays, I start thinking Loki and the multiverse, right? I'm not too sure how this plays in with the multiverse, but we do know it has interdimensional abilities, which makes me think that at some point, the multiverse is going to come into play if it hasn't already. But continuing on with episode 2, Kamala begins to ask and inquire more and more and more about the nature of this bangle and what its abilities are and who its original owner is. So she talks to her grandmother about a young lady by the name of Aisha. Aisha was the bangle's original owner. I did not know that, but one, I do love that name as well. And next thing that happens is, Kamala is in the mosque because, she still has her religious contributions that she has to participate in. So she goes to the mosque, and while there, a young boy is climbing on the mosque. How he got there, don't know. Why he's up there, don't know. Why he's so curious to stay up there, don't know. But what normally happens is, if you're in places that you shouldn't be, bad stuff happens. And he's on the top of the mosque, on the balcony area, and he falls, and it's up to Kamala to now use her powers, very much like Spider-Man, for good. She rescues him, but not before realizing that she still has a lot of training to do. The boy slips, breaks his leg, or fractures it. One of the two. Something. He does something to his legs. But it makes everyone clap at first, and then, she drops him, and then they almost boo. Of which she then realizes she has a lot more to learn, because with great power comes great responsibility. Exactly. Episode 2 ends with a vision, and we will see what that vision is. In episode 3, though, a lady by the name of Najma explains that she and Kamran are, mother and son, and they are part of a group referred to as the clandestines. And who the clandestines are, they are referred to as jinns. Now, I need to understand a bit more about jinns. I don't know if they're demons, or I don't know if they're genies or whatnot, but she says that they are from a line of the clandestine, that they are actually jinns in their religion. That's how they would know them. Now, these jinns, they were exiled from Nora, and it's Najma's prerogative to get back to where she was exiled from, and that her sister Aisha, the original owner of the bangle, was one of those jinns. She was from that area as well, right? They are all trying to get back to this dimension. Now, the bangle might help them return, and Bruno warns that interdimensional. Bruno is thinking. Okay, if there's one thing I could say about Bruno, he's kind of the voice of reason in this, right? One, he continuously tells Kamala, you have to train. You need to do X, way. You need to do Z, right? But he's also the only one that seems to be concerned about interdimensional travel. Why? Multiverse. Obviously, it's the multiverse, right? It has to be the multiverse problems. So Bruno is warning about interdimensional travel, that it could be dangerous. This is obvious for anybody. Kamala's brother Amir marries a lady by the name of Taisha, and during the time that they're at this wedding, the clandestines attack them at this wedding, and Najma tries to use the bangle, which triggers a vision of a train. If you see, this is where I was a little confused at the end of this episode, because I was wondering why she's seeing visions of this train. But yeah, the train appears, and in the midst of the train appearing, it leads us to episode 4, which takes place exactly there. So she needs more information, and this is where we get to episode 4. Kamala and Maniba, they travel to Karachi in order to reunite with Sana, the person that was responsible for seeing these stars, the person that sent Kamala this bangle in the first place. So this is where now we get to the heart of the matter, and we start getting a little bit more exposition than we would normally would. Kamala is attacked by a gentleman by the name of Kareem. He's a member of the Red Dagger group. This is a vigilante group in Karachi, and they're responsible for going up against the clandestines. This is very much like Shield as well, right? They're kind of the Karachi version of Shield. So the leader, his name is Walid. Now the reason why they attacked Kamala was they assumed that she was a member of the clandestines, but once they learn that she is not, they take her in, they take care of her, and they begin to train with her. They explain a lot more about the dimensions and the responsibility of the Red Daggers and the responsibility of the clandestines and why they are a dangerous group. So in the midst of Kamala beginning to train with them, she starts to master her powers, and this is where you start to see her really develop. Walid though, while he's training Kamala and while he's training with Kareem, they become under attack by the clandestines, and Walid ends up killing one of the clandestines member, but not before Najma puts a knife right through him and she takes him out. I liked Walid. I thought he would have been around a little longer, but maybe he'll come back. I don't know, but we'll touch on that a little bit more later, right? Kareem kills one of the clandestines. Kareem kills one of them, and Najma accidentally stabs the bangle. Now when she stabs the bangle, something else happens. It actually opens up another dimension. This is where you see the train. The train now, it no longer is now a vision. It takes Kamala directly into the heart of the partition. And if you weren't confused, good on you. I was confused like no tomorrow, because I was wondering not just what does this have to do with the story, because they already mentioned the train and Sana and all of that. I was wondering what this had to do with Marvel, right? Because now I'm thinking, okay, well, does this lead into something else? Does the train ride lead into something that has to do with the multiverse? I was really struggling to understand, okay, well, what's the significance of this train, right? I know that they mentioned, the thing about Sana and the stars leading her back to her father, and they were separated and whatnot. But yeah, that ending scene really left me a little befuddled. Now in episode 5, this happens in 1942, and now Aisha makes her first appearance. The original bangle owner has now made her first appearance in 1942 India, just at the time of the partition. So now she has looked to escape from the Noor and from Najma and from the other members of that group, and she takes refuge under an activist, right? He provides her with food and shelter, and they eventually fall in love, and they have a child, Sana, Kamala's grandmother, right? Aisha leaves the bangle with Sana, and they try to escape to go to Pakistan. But before they can do that, they're confronted Aisha's confronted by Najma. And while she's confronted by Najma, Najma actually ends up stabbing her. This is what is responsible for Aisha's death. But before she does that, she runs into Kamala, who she assumes is, I think it was Sana that she mentioned, Sana in the future, and she tells her to make sure that Sana gets back to her father. And while she does that, Kamala runs into Sana, and she has to find a way to kind of calm this child down, because the child is crying. So what does she do to calm the child down? Well, she uses her light crystal powers and shows it to the child, but breaks it up in such a way that it actually resembles stars. She uses the powers to then direct her to her father, and then she realizes that she was the one that was responsible for showing Sana that vision of light. So the grandmother wasn't lying about the vision that she had. She just had the misunderstanding of how it all came about. Now, with all that said though, it raises a few questions. That does necessarily raise a few questions. And it's the time travel questions. So does that mean that Kamala was always the one that played that role? If there are other dimensions, and if there's intertraveling in terms of time, does that mean that in every situation, Kamala is always the one that sends Sana that vision? Time travel, once you start to introduce time travel into your story, it can become a little bit confusing, especially if you're under the notion that throughout eternity, this role always happened in this manner, right? In every scenario, Kamala was the one responsible for showing Sana the way through that light vision, right? If anyone knows about that, please enlighten me. I'm more than willing to understand how that all played out, right? When they get back to their own time now, and we're almost finished here. When they get back to their own time, Najma strikes Nazma's strike has opened a portal to the Veil of the Noor, and of course, she sacrifices herself and transfers her powers over to Kamran, who now has similar powers to Kamala, and this is where episode 5 ends. So today, episode 6. What transpired in episode 6? Okay. They are on the run from the Department of Damage Control. The Department of Damage Control is ultimately the bad guy in this. It wasn't actually Kamran. Kamran and Kamala eventually side up, and they now have to go up against this group. Now, what happens? They have a plan, right? And their plan is basically a plan of stalling and diversion. So, Deaver, the one of the representatives of the damage control, they decide to lock down the city, and they now have to find these kids. Now, in them attempting to find these kids, Kamala requests some help. So she gets some help from Nakia, Amir, Zoe, Kareem, brother's wife, the whole works in this school. And while they're in this school, their plan is to really just stall that department. The department is looking to infiltrate this school, and while they're told to stand down, Deaver counteracts that measure by going full force. They actually attack the school, right? They go full SWAT on the school. Now, I thought that they were eventually going to stop, and two things here, right? Two things. One, they opened fire on the kids. I was a little shocked at that. I was really surprised that they opened fire on the kids, right? Especially with live ammunition. The next thing, they used a weapon that was actually very similar to the Incredible Hulk. And what I mean by it's very similar to the Incredible Hulk, if you remember the actual movie The Incredible Hulk, there was a particular scene where Hulk was charging against the army, and while he was charging at the army, they used a sound type of weapon in order to discombobulate him, right? In order to kind of throw his body and his cells out of whack. They use a very similar weapon here. It was the first thing that I thought of when I saw the weapon that they were using, until they, used live ammunition that the kids had to block against. I don't know if that was a statement, but whatever. I'll just take it at face value for what it is, right? When she fired at Kamran, when Deaver and the rest of them fired at Kamran, I'm a little shocked that he wasn't hit by any of the bullets. One, the shield that he made wasn't very large, and two, there were officers at the side of Kamran that were shooting bullets that seemed to miss, even though he wasn't blocking. So maybe they have a stormtrooper aim. I don't know. Maybe they're just bad aims, right? But at this point, Kamala then sides with Kamran. Now, what transpires next? They escape. They buy enough time. They get away. Kamala changes her name to Miss Marvel. In this point, she's already told her family all of what happened and whatnot. Kamran gets away. He escapes. Kamala, they get away. The damage control unit is told to stand down. They're told to retreat, obviously, because there's going to be huge ramifications. One, probably because this was seen all over the news. Two, you have officers firing at children, so that's not gonna go over very well. At the end scene, Bruno explains to Kamala that there's something in her blood, and I don't know if this means that she's a mutant more than just a Jinn. And if so, it might be getting us ready for the X-Men series that's coming up, or for the X-Men movies that's coming up. But yeah, he explains to her that something's wrong that he noticed. There's a little bit more of something wrong, that he noticed that she might actually have mutation in her genetic code, right? Pretty sure that has to be an X-Men reference. Obviously, and then during the mid-credit scene, during the post-credit scene, Kamala has the bangle. She lays on her bed, and of course she switches places with one Captain Marvel. Carol Danvers makes her final appearance in this show, of which we then are introduced to the fact that we will see Miss Marvel in the Marvels, possibly a new movie that is coming up. She will make her return. Now, Kamala had her outfit. I didn't say anything about that just yet, but let me just touch on that quickly. The outfit, I didn't mind the outfit, actually. Right? I think it was a huge upgrade from the outfit that she had in episode 1. The episode 1 outfit made her look like a child, and then the regular costume that she was just wearing was just basic clothing with, of course, the color scheme and then the scarf. But the outfit in episode 6, it was bang on for the most part, right? It was very reminiscent of the outfit in the comics. It's gifted to her by her mother in episode 6, and I think they did a good job on the design, right? The character looked very much like the character that you would see in the comics. But overall, now, what's my thoughts? This show for the most part was okay. If I had to give it any kind of a rating, I would probably give it a 7 out of 10, mainly for the settings, the character, and the diversification in terms of the character. They played heavy on the religion, right? They made sure that you knew that this was a show about Muslims, or this was a show that had a lot of explaining to do about Muslim culture. I think that's the better way of putting it, right? They did not shy away from that, and that's something that I'm actually very impressed with. Normally, you would tend to water certain things down, but they really didn't. When it came down to the separation of men and women in the mosque, they made sure that you understood why. They even alluded to it. They explained it and everything along those lines. I was actually very impressed with that. In terms of the action, I think they could have done a lot better with the action. I wasn't all too impressed with that. In terms of Kamala's powers, if anyone knows anything about Kamala, which I know about this much, but I know enough though to know that these are not her genuine powers. Her genuine powers are actually enlarging her body parts, right? So she can enlarge stuff like her hands. That's the powers, but I don't know how they would have conveyed that over to the television. So they just chose to go with this power instead. The questions that this raises, it raises a bit of questions about interdimensional travel and how this plays in line with the multiverse. Altogether, I think this will get a lot more explanation if they were to do another season, or if they were to do some explanation in the Marvels, like they said that they were going to bring her back in, right? How this all concluded, I think it was okay. I don't think it was the worst. Listen, when it comes down to Marvel has been in such a way that I've seen good shows and I've seen bad. This is not their worst. I don't think anyone can conclude that this is their worst. Why? The art design, the setting design, the world building, the development of characters. I think they did a good enough job on this that if you were to watch it, you probably won't be disappointed. It really didn't feel like a Marvel show. Let me just say that right off the bat. This felt like something that you'd watch on Disney. There's actually a show on Disney with a young boy with powers. I'm gonna actually have to look him up. I'm trying to remember his name. It actually is not Disney. It's a Nickelodeon show, right? I had to inquire from a little scholar that I had. She's actually very brilliant, and she was the one that told me it's not a Disney show, it's actually Nickelodeon, and the name of the show is Henry Danger. This is what that reminded me of, right? It really did not feel like a Marvel show, so you cannot walk into this expecting this to feel like Marvel. If that's what you're coming for, you're gonna be sadly disappointed. This really does feel like a Disney television show, especially with the art style, especially the way that the way that the characters feel and the way that they develop, it feels like something that you'd see from like a 13-year-old. Even when Kamala is taking on the role of the superhero, it felt like my 5-year-old was you know, taking on this mantle, right? But overall, I think the show was okay. I don't think it was all that bad. I've seen a lot worse, and for the most part, you know, I was okay. I wasn't excited getting ready to watch this, but it's not something that I was dreading, like I had to struggle through to just finish this, right? I watched it from start to finish, and if it was on television again, I'd probably give it a look see, right? And Kamala, I think, is one of the first that actually has both parents in the house that are remaining alive. To the best of my knowledge, most Marvel characters, parents are gone, either father or mom, if you haven't noticed. So overall, I probably give this a solid 7 out of 10, right? I think for the most part, you'll enjoy this if you watch it. It wasn't too bad, right? But let me know what you guys think, and I will see you again for the next one.